Hi, I'm Dr. John Edwards, and in this video, breaking down barriers to blended learning implementation, we'll talk about paradigm shifts in K-12 and post-secondary education, and that's based on research and expert data from the 2020 ASU and GSV Summit. In this video, you will learn about the paradigm shifts and what schools and teachers need to do. Despite the rapid growth of blended learning in post-secondary institutions prior to COVID-19, there were systemic barriers to its implementation. Now, COVID-19 brings new optimism for blended learning implementation and has forced a change in many teachers' perceptions of the barriers to blended learning integration. Many K-12 schools have quickly learned how to minimize risk factors and improve blended learning outcomes and ensure greater equity.
A little bit of politics and things like that is perhaps one of the silver linings coming out of COVID, that we're going to develop the political and sort of societal will to address sort of the right of every student, every citizen to have to be able to have bandwidth and access and device access to learn at home.
Deborah, I mean, I'd say for the last 25 years, I and a small band of lone wolves have been sort of out there talking and yelling to anyone who will listen about the importance of digital equity. And my very first statement to you at the top of the show was that COVID has helped us to digitally accelerate a whole range of very important things. Projects at the university that would have taken 5 or 6 years are now being done in 5 or 6 months. The issue associated with access and adoption and digital equity are non-trivial. There's lots of reasons. It's a big dollar amount. There's all kinds of dysfunctionality in the delivery.
Prior to COVID-19, the challenges implementing blended learning included designing courses for optimal learning, facilitating teacher-student and student-student interactions, and facilitating effective technology integration as well as professional development. Educationally effective blended learning course designs must align with research literature, which indicates that a well-designed blended learning model integrates the strengths of face-to-face instruction and computer-mediated studies. Effective blended learning facilitates rigor, differentiation, real-world applications, and immediate feedback to students. Data shows that there are many significant advantages of blended learning over face-to-face instruction, including increased student engagement, understanding, retention, and overall achievement. Please see our blog listed below for more details.
It suffices to say, ASU is completely convicted that online learning, synchronous or asynchronous, can be equally efficacious and even potentially more engaging than offline experiences.
Absolutely. And again, at ASU Online, delivered by our colleagues at Ed Plus at ASU, all of our faculty are ASU faculty. All of the design work is done by the ASU faculty community. So in terms of the quality of the actual instruction, combined with an outstanding instructional design team, we are absolutely of the conviction that this is as good as, and as we have found out since March 16th, there are many scenarios, many use cases where actually this online live remote is actually more of an educational opportunity for learners and for professors than they had previously. And just one last data point, if you don't mind, Deborah, we measure everything at ASU. I mean, that's one of our obsessions. It starts with Michael Crow, and it goes right down through the entire organization. We measure everything. And we were very concerned as there was kind of a meme out there that somehow, what was happening in March was kind of somehow a discount, somehow less than valuable to our learners. We had higher customer satisfaction measured by our student satisfaction than ever that we've measured, and persistence to completion of the semester was higher than ever.
If we can unlock the full potential of blended learning, this disruptive innovation could improve the efficiency, quality and accessibility of education and become one of the most effective learning systems. It is imperative for administrators and stakeholders to address the huge demands for more professional development and technology resources. The focus for professional development efforts needs to include learning management systems and strategies to combine the most effective elements of traditional instruction and virtual instruction. If we fail to do this, it may result in poorly designed blended learning that intensifies the negative learning experiences for many students.
Right now, we're a little bit underwater though. I mean, I'm worried now that we actually have a generation of kids, and my own kids included, that are almost getting left behind. That if we don't figure out how to maximize what we're doing with Zoom and how to really not just teach online, but really make sure that we have teachers that are engaging with their students online, that while we're going through this change, there are some kids that can be negatively affected. So even though I'm very positive for what this means in the long haul, I think that the important thing is that we need to be focused on what we're doing today to ensure that we're just not leaving a generation of children behind as we go through this rough patch with.
Prior to COVID-19, teachers were somewhat resistant to implementation of blended learning, primarily because of a lack of professional development. There was a lack of technological resources and significant concerns for students' self-regulation. So when addressing technology deficits, school leadership must also address student self-regulation.
Back when we started Blackboard, we were going to schools for the first time saying, hey, let me explain. We really think that this whole internet thing is going to cause you to put some of your class materials online, maybe even put tests and quizzes online until you're eventually having an entire class or whole program online. And a lot of schools came back to us and said, I'm not sure that's really going to happen. Sometimes, some of our teachers aren't ready for that type of technology. The students aren't asking for it. And maybe it's illegal to put grades online. And we actually heard this from several different institutions. And then very slowly, they started adopting this technology first just to use it to complement their existing classes, and then maybe even just put a course. And then suddenly the entire program started showing up online. But it was very, very slow. And we were going into the schools, not just showcasing our software, but really pitching them and talking with them about the benefits of online learning. Well, now I can tell you that there are no discussions with schools that, hey, you should really put your education online. I mean, just the opposite. Suddenly, every single teacher at the school is doing online learning and has had a crash course in it. And so now the schools are figuring out, okay, both what can we do to make sure that the teachers have the tools they need to be successful? And then what are other new methodologies that we can pull in?
Let's talk about policy and practice. With increasing emphasis on 21st century technology standards, policymakers and educators must give greater urgency in their consideration to creating policies that lower systemic barriers to the implementation of blended learning. And these policies should encourage funding for technology infrastructure and professional development resources.
We are only at the very tipping point of, I believe, what the net effect of this is going to be. You can't suddenly train hundreds of thousands of teachers and now millions of students in online learning and not expect it to have this long-term effect. I think what this has done is it's really sped up the entire industry by easily 5 to 10 years. And what this means is that even once Secure is available, I think we are never going back. There are going to be more online programs, more parts of programs are going to be online. There's going to be, as Eric actually said, a much greater dispersion of people being able to actually have access to education because of the lowering costs of education. Now that you've suddenly trained all of these teachers in online learning, you can bet that there are going to be more programs and more affordable programs going forward in the future. And I think that's going to revolutionize not only education here in the US, but education around the world.
We must eliminate barriers due to existing seat time requirements and clarify the roles of certified teachers or facilitators in blended learning course delivery. We must also address significant concerns for students' self-regulation by establishing clear standards, monitoring mechanisms, and performance incentives.
I think this is the beginning of this new era, and as Leo mentioned, EdTech has huge opportunity, and in terms of digital transformation, digital learning experience, and a lot of technology, a lot of entrepreneurs, and all the learners, and online educators, and together, I think that we can create this opportunity. And stay with that. I think again, this is something beginning. We are very excited about the future.